My name is Leslie Daigle, the Global Technical Officer for the Global Cyber Alliance, and I'm joined today by Kevin Brown, Managing Director of BT Security. Today, we will discuss securing your digital world. So Kevin, several decades into deployment, the internet is critical to everyday life. It's for business operations, getting the world through this whole pandemic. What are the biggest security challenges that face our digital world today?
Well, first of all, nice to meet you, Leslie, and what a great question that we open up on. Well, I look back, and first of all, let's look over the decades of what sort of cyber, the use of sort of the internet has evolved. And I think the one thing that we can all recognise is whilst we've all benefited, and we've seen now over perhaps the last decade, how the evolution and the use of the internet has taken shape over that decade. I think it's in a really shorter space of time that people have had to adjust to what that actually means to them and what it actually means to whether it's their own risk posture, whether it's their business risk posture. So we've all had to make adjustments as individuals, organisations, and even entire nation states on a far significant sort of shorter time frame. So I think as that evolution has taken place, that sort of we've had that challenge. I think there's been a positive that I've personally seen with my time at BT and speaking with many customers is that we've moved from this jargon sort of filled IT world where every other word was an acronym and it may have sort of related to someone that was very heavily technical into something now that is part of everyday language. I'm sure you have conversations with whether it's your colleagues, your family, your friends, where actually there's a lot more appreciation of what cyber crime is or cyber threats and cyber aware. We're not where we need to be yet, but actually I think whilst everyone's embraced the challenge, it means that actually it's being demystified and people are starting to sort of better understand what it means. And also I think people are recognizing that it's not just about the basic control. It's not just about what may be on a laptop or on an endpoint, recognizing that you probably need to go a step further. And as we had sort of this bigger change, I guess you mentioned at the start there around sort of the pandemic and COVID, I guess that has really forced involvement. Over the past, I guess, couple of years, everyone's talked about the traditional perimeter falling away. We used to talk about the perimeter as being this coconut, something that you could secure very easily when MPLS was sort of king. And as cloud adoption and the need for sort of greater access to applications from anywhere really, the perimeter disappeared and you've moved from this coconut to sort of more of an avocado, which is about protecting what really matters to you. So I think that was on a journey, but what the pandemic has done is taken that a step further because everyone had said, okay, the edge of my network that I'm now going to sort of look at protecting was perhaps my office, my branch. Actually, the edge of everyone's network now is your front room. It could be your kitchen, it could be a lounge, it could be your bedroom, it could be a shared place. So there's a lot more thinking that people have had to do very recently in really understanding and securing. So there's just a couple. We can talk about the generics of a lot more cloud-based activity, but there's some initial thoughts around some challenges.
So it sounds like part of what's happening is that people are actually both more aware of security challenges and having to think more consciously about what they're trying to achieve as opposed to just putting a Band-Aid on something and hoping it all works out. So ISPs like BT are critical actors in our experience of the digital world as they provide services to the general public, as well as businesses and myriad behind-the-scenes functions. So what role do ISPs and telecoms like BT play in helping secure the internet for people as a system, especially beyond technical aspects?
It's a great question, Leslie, and I think you're right. At BT, I personally see myself in quite a unique and privileged position. We serve across 180 countries, and we're a security company at the same time. We see about 17 terabits of data passing our network every second. So we have this huge insight into our ringside seat. And with that, we could sit back and say as a telco, great, we're just going to do what's needed, what's regulated. But actually, I'm proud to work for BT, which is an organisation that says we're in this privileged position. Actually, we've taken a number of steps to secure the UK's backbone, but actually we can go a lot further than that now. We can take the learnings a lot of the principles that we have and really push that out far wider. And that's why I'm sort of really pleased that BT and indeed a number of other telcos have taken that step to be a lot more proactive, to talk about the benefits that the internet brings to bringing the globe much closer, but at the same time, making sure that everyone takes the right steps to make sure that actually their journey across the internet is one that's going to be secured. So, and I think with that means that it puts us in a very strong position to really enact and really influence a safer connected world. And I talk quite a bit about that to my team, and my team share a passion that we come to work and the things that we do influence that safer connected world. It could be as simple as actually sharing best practice with colleagues in countries where perhaps they don't have the right level of government support, or actually within their own business they're struggling to get the traction. But it also means that we're in a position to work with a number of other organisations, and GCA is a great example of that, of where with BT and Global Cyber Alliance, we've worked together on a number of initiatives to really drive and really improve internet standards. And likewise, leveraging forums such as the World Economic Forum, where BT can talk openly about its experiences, how we've taken steps to work. For example, where we work with the National Cybersecurity Centre in the UK, we've helped introduce the active cyber defence. So we're blocking now over 130 malicious communications attempts per month on the UK consumers, which is vast. But if you imagine that you try and multiply that by a number of other telcos with their governments taking that same step, it's raising that bar to entry for criminals to try and attack the users of the internet. So there's a number of steps, but I think, yes, we are a private organisation that and we support all of our consumers, but at the same time, we very much welcome partnerships, whether it's business to business, it's business to sort of the public sector, and that's absolutely critical for us. And I think one of the things that cybercrime has done is it enables businesses to sometimes put their business rivalry to one side. And if you wind the clock back, we started this discussion about advances we've seen in sort of the last decade. I think one of the things that's really moved on is businesses, telcos can work side by side. We may compete fiercely in the high street, but you know what? We've got our interests of our consumers at heart, and therefore working with partners, working with each other to improve the standards, make it safer, that's what we need to be doing.
Indeed, collaboration is key. So GCA has done intensive work to address systemic risks, from working with secure email and DMARC to DNS security and the Quad 9 service and Internet of Things work that we've been working on as well. To more recently, we're looking at routing security and domain registration security. So what are we missing?
Well, I first of all, I don't actually think that you're missing. I think we can all say we're missing things. We can all have that step back and say, if only I've done that, I've only have done this. But do you know what is happening? It's that proactiveness, it's that awareness, it's driving a new culture. And I look across the fantastic role that Global Cyber Alliance has played. You've mentioned there that the DMARC, he said at the start, it's jargon filled and we've myth busted, but there are a couple of acronyms, sort of the DMARC, DNS, really driven a different approach to that. And whilst not every organisation has been in a position to actually adopt it, but actually it has raised awareness. It means that people can make informed decisions, whether it's about themselves personally, whether it's about the small business that they run, or whether it's about the large organisation. But I think what we can do, and it's never going to be enough, so when it comes back to missing, is how do we drive that stronger education around security behaviours? Because as we look at the amount of attacks, quite often we get blown away and we talk about nation state, sophisticated actors. Actually, 9 times out of 10, they've got in through some really basic hygiene that hasn't been done in your ecosystem, or but through basic human error. So therefore, the more we raise, that's going to be absolutely critical as we go forward.
And given all of that, throwing our minds to the future a little bit, do you have any thoughts about where the threats may come from next?
Wow, that's a question that should probably keep us going now, Leslie, for the next hour or so. But I'll try and summarise. I think the important thing is we could spend a lot of time, and indeed in BT we do spend a lot of time looking at the next level of threat, trying to understand actually what actor groups are doing. We ingest as part of that in our large data platforms about 1.8 million events per second. So we're constantly crunching the detail of the data, trying to look for patterns. But actually, as organizations and individuals, we can get carried away and think that we need to protect ourselves from all of this badness. But the important thing is actually, what is it you're seeking to protect? Do you really know what your assets are, either on a personal level or for a business? And when I speak to, whether it be consumers, when it be sort of customers in our multinationals, there's still a number of people who are really grappling with, we're not really sure what it is we're trying to protect. So whilst we can look out there and say the world's pretty scary, it comes back to the fundamentals of actually being really crystal clear on what it is you're trying to protect. Now, the next bit I would suggest, and this, unfortunately, for those that are expecting sort of excitement, it may be time for another interview, but it's the basics. I've mentioned it sort of a few minutes ago, is really focus on the basics. So when we look at what we're going to focus on in the future, yes, we can talk about sophisticated lines of defense in depth, all of that, but let's get the basics right. Are we patching? Do we have good password management? Do we have good awareness? And it's something in BT where we've been on a journey and we've introduced what we call a program called the Human Firewall, which is a training program that we like everybody to embrace in. It's also a community where people will share best practice. And that really is just aimed at the basics. And then finally, that's sort of linked to, don't get hooked up on they're going to intentionally attack me, or it's someone, when we look at the insider, we sort of talk about a malicious insider. Let's not forget the accidental or the negligent. So when we are building in processes, making sure that actually we can have some tolerance for human error in there. And if a single click leads you wide exposed, you've got to be looking at your processes and to say, well, actually defense in depth does mean that we need to recognize that people will always target, criminals will always target human beings. And it's about actually how do we support humans a lot more in that. But overall, I think as the pandemic has shown, as I look towards the future, any strategy, whether it be in your personal life, whether it be in your business, has got to be flexible, it's got to be agile, it's got to be adaptable. And I think the sort of final thing I'll finish on that one is it's understanding what I call your personal risk radar. The pandemic has converged what used to be sort of your home risk profile and your work risk profile. Your work risk profile was always a little bit higher because for me, when I go into my office, I walk into the foyer, I know there's security cameras, I put my pass card on the reader, it lets me in. So there's always that heightened bit. But actually for many of us, you work from home, perhaps a little bit more relaxed in your dress, you've got a home office, and therefore perhaps your risk profile is slightly lower. So really homing in as we go forward to say, what is my personal risk radar? Regardless of whether I'm doing work, whether I'm just on the internet for fun, making sure we're really clear and you can protect what matters to you.
That's a lot of really good information and good ideas. And would you like to leave us with one simple cybersecurity tip for anybody who's listening to this?
2 tips. So first of all is really understanding what matters to you. What is it you're seeking to protect and why? And then the second one is, do you have the basics in place? Before you get into the advanced stuff, do you have the basics of a security strategy, whether it's for your personal life, for your work life, to protect what matters? So that was my my two final bits.
That's great. Thank you very much. And in closing, a brief word of thanks to our partners at BT who have championed GCA today by displaying the GCA Be a Cyber Secure messages on the BT Tower.
Thank you, Leslie, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you, and good luck to GCA going forward.
Thank you very much.